What's up, everybody? Listen, let me start off by apologizing. We are late because of me. So I want to start off with a don't look at me like that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Listen, we made you guys a promise at the beginning of the year that we would be more consistent. But trust me, sometimes with the schedules, it's a lot. So, but we are here. Don't do. Wait a minute, sir. Don't do that because your schedule is a doozy too.
Hi, everyone.
So, hi to everybody that was in the chat waiting for us and everybody that's coming in. We're going to just go ahead and jump in because we are running late. I am running late before he corrects me. We're going to go ahead and start with an update. We have an update to a story we spoke on last week in regards to the 6-year-old boy down in Newport News, Virginia, that assaulted his teacher with a weapon. You know, we got to be careful with our words over on the U of the tubes because we ain't monetized yet, but one day we will be. Praise the Lord. So, as we both predicted, heads were going to roll, and that's exactly what happened. So the first thing that happened was the assistant principal um, has resigned. The superintendent for the whole school system was fired. The teacher has filed a lawsuit against the school district, which so that one coming a mile away. And since then, more information has come out about the student and just how much warning they actually had the day of the incident. They knew that the young man, or was rumored that the young man had a weapon, and they did search his book bag, but did not find the weapon. But then they told the teacher, "Well, the school day is almost over. Don't worry about it." Which I don't even know where to start with that, El Teddy. I don't even.
I don't want to. If I'm being honest, I don't even want to report on this story anymore because until there is some repercussions for those parents, I don't even want to hear on it. You can talk and scream from the highest of the highs down to the lowest of the lows about all of the processes within that school district that went wrong. But the fact that the parents seem to be going away unscathed on this situation is an atrocity of justice. That is where this originally starts from. Because had the parents not had a 6-year-old with access to a gun to even bring to school, we ain't even talking about these processes. So we have to
I agree.
start
Listen,
at the root of the process. So
listen.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just this story. I'm not giving a pass to the school district and, and all of those people there who deservedly so got some repercussions. But until they talk about the parents of this child, and until we get down to that, and we talk about why is the child still in their custody? Why hasn't Child Protective Services going and decided that it's time to have some services happen with regard to this child and those parents? That's for me where this all should begin. And unless we're starting there, it's it's a non sequitur for me.
All right. Um, but I agree with you 100%. 1000%. I actually went on a whole rant today on TikTok telling teachers that they have failed. And I'm expecting all the blowback, but I don't care. I'm kind of fed up with just things going on within my own situation at work, and I'm just sick of it. Like I'm just sick of the disrespect. I don't want to go down that road. But yeah, I had a whole rant on TikTok today about telling telling parents that they have failed their kids. So anyway, you ready to get into these articles?
I'm trying not to spike out. I'm trying.
I feel like you already have.
I I, I'm trying. I got a piece of candy over here. Two pieces of candy over here. I'm gonna try not to spike out. Go ahead.
Okay, well, we have a couple of articles to get into today. Um, One is sort of a follow up to what we did last week. Do you want to start with AP since that's sort of a follow up to last week, or do you want to do which direction you want to go in?
It's all downhill from here. You go ahead
I
and pick
mean,
whichever one you want. I'm here for
I
either
mean,
way.
two out of the three stories are from the what do you call them, El Teddy? I can never get it right. What do you call them?
From the holy trinity of racism, bigotry, and discrimination.
That's it. So two out of the three come. So let's start with Michigan, and then we can just jump on into Texas and Florida because we always end up in Texas and in Florida. So let's just go ahead and start with Michigan. I'm going to drop the link in the chat, and as generally speaking, I go say as always, but it's generally speaking, you can find the links to the articles in the description box if you are catching this on replay or catching this on the podcast platform.
While she's
So
doing that, somebody, I just want to put this out here. It's for anybody watching the replay. Please don't come in my chat. I've had two people in the last week say that I'm the lazy one and that I should read more and that I don't do enough,
nope,
do nothing but sit there.
who told
And they
wait a
said,
minute, who said
literally,
that?
I don't even know these people. Like, but they said I literally do nothing but sit there and wait for you to do all of the heavy lifting, and I just
That's
wait and
not
do a quick
true.
comment.
We've said that a
And I was
million
like,
times.
that's not how this goes. Please don't come in my inbox with that kind of
That
stuff.
is listen.
We equally share these things.
El Teddy and I have a great marriage on how this situation works. Don't come in here trying to get a divorce, okay? We are
Right.
good, okay? This
We got
whole
this. I
situation,
do work. I do work over
this
here.
whole situation is fine, okay? Don't come in here trying to set up no divorce, okay?
Amen. My throat. Okay, I work.
All right, don't do that. Don't do that. We good. We are. I will blink twice if I need help. Right now, we good. Okay. Woo, Lord. Trying to start some stuff. All right. So this is coming from the Detroit News. It is dated January the 31st. It was published at 4:12 p.m. Michigan Senate panel advances bill scrapping retention in third grade reading law. Oh boy. A state Senate committee on Tuesday advanced legislation that would scrap Michigan's third grade reading law requiring students to be reading at grade level before being allowed to advance to the fourth grade. Senate Bill 12, sponsored by State Senator Dana, I'm going to say Polachek because I'm just thinking of facts of life. Uh, Pardon me if I just screwed up your name, but it's good. Introduced on January the 12th, would delete a provision in the 2016 law prohibiting the promotion of a third grade student to the fourth grade if they read a grade level behind based on their score on the state reading assessment. Polachek and her bill would only eliminate retention and the rest of the law, which offers staffing recommendations, reading intervention services, and the use of evidence based curricula and instructional materials will remain in place. It's a clean bill, she says. The parent notification remains. My bill has decreased costs to the school aid fund. The Democratic controlled Senate Education Committee approved the bill on a 5-1 vote with Republican John DeMose of Harbor Springs and Republican Senator Ruth Johnson of Holly not voting. The bill now heads to the Senate floor for debate and consideration by all 38 senators. For more than 2 years, state lawmakers have introduced bills to pause the controversial law or eliminate the retention requirement, all of which failed under Republican control on January 1st. Democrats took over control of the House and Senate following victories in the November election. Public school districts have been following the law, which calls for screening young students within the first 30 days of the start of the school year, documenting reading intervention plans, and contacting families. It doesn't seem to me to be the time to weaken our standards or accountability, DeMose said before voting against the bill. Do schools have the resources to provide this extra support to kids right now? When state assessments were canceled in 2019-2020 school year due to the pandemic, Michigan's Ready by Grade 3 law was suspended. It was to be its first year in effect. The retention component of the law went into effect for the first time for students who were in the third grade and in the 2021 school year. At the time, most educators said they would not enforce the controversial law. Last school year, 1 out of every 10 third graders eligible to be retained under the literacy law were held back. The 545 students remained in the third grade is more than double the amount retained in the prior school year, which was 228, according to a report by the Education Policy Innovation Collaborative at Michigan State University. The K-12 Alliance of Michigan, a coalition of Southwest Michigan education leaders, praised the Senate committee's action to repeal the third grade reading law. By removing the law's focus on punishing students that have fallen behind and allowing educators to instead partner with parents to design a recovery plan specific to their student, we will help kids across Michigan learn, grow, and succeed once again. Said Robert McCain, the executive director of the K-12 Alliance of Michigan. In a total, 5,680 Michigan third grade students out of 97,137 who took the test were eligible to be held back or retained because they scored a grade level below. Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmire has long opposed the law. In 2020 moved to educate parents about exemption options to the state's third grade reading law, calling it a punitive law that could be a nightmare for families. Families or educators can seek to stop a student from being held back by requesting an exemption, but the final decision rests with the school board's district superintendent. On Tuesday, Strunk told the committee there were disparities in retention outcomes by race and economic disadvantage. Black and economically disadvantaged students are more than twice as likely to be retained as their white and wealthier peers. These gaps increased in 2021 and 2022 compared to prior year. What you got?
This is nothing new to me. Ironically, in the great state of Florida, they've had something to
Can you
this.
stop saying great state? Can you just say state of Florida? I'm asking for a friend.
There's been something like this in place for about 20, 15 to 20 years. There was a big uproar about it then. Essentially, and this is where, remember when you started to hear a lot more about the school to prison pipeline, the third grade school to prison pipeline, where
Mm-hmm.
they would start ordering new cells in prisons allegedly based on the third grade retention rates.
Mm-hmm.
Florida was one of those states that spearheaded under then Governor Jeb Bush, third
Mm.
grade retention, which is why when I was teaching middle school in my early years of teaching, I had 16-year-olds in the eighth grade
Mm. Mm-mm.
because literally, if they did not pass the state assessment, they were retained in its inception. It was just you pass or you're retained, and they could do it for 3 years. And then I think there was a forced social promotion
Mm.
after 3 years. Now it morphed after so many years and outcry, and we had 16-year-olds in class with 11-year-olds and stuff. And then when you translate that to high school, you got 20 and 21-year-olds still in high school because of this. They started with either you pass the assessment or you have they could do a portfolio. There was an alternate method with which to assess whether or not that student
Mm.
can be promoted, because somebody finally realized that all students don't do well with standardized tests and or assessments. And then the other part about it is you had teachers that were teaching to the test. They really truly weren't teaching to educate or instruct. It was teaching only to pass the test. And what
Mm-hmm.
happened is they lost the instruction of the actual skill sets and the all of the rudiments of education, and the things that go at that grade level that will stack and scaffold to the subsequent and successive grades. So a third grader, by the time they got to a certain grade, was not imparted with all of the things they needed to be successful in those higher grades, simply because at third grade they didn't care about giving them all of the things that a third grader should get. They only cared about teaching them that test and how to pass that test.
Mm.
With third grade is a very, that's about the middle of the way. In elementary school, you can imagine there's a lot of things that, a child needs to learn so that they could build off of. And so it just became a whole mess. And the fact that Michigan is this late in the game with that tells me that that red wave that happened in 2016 worked. If you remember, really be, they had the blue wall up north, right? Remember they had
Mm-hmm.
the blue wall up north, and in 2016 the blue wall turned red. If you remember,
Mm-hmm.
when that blue wall turned red, they started to institute things there that had not been there before. Because this isn't a new phenomenon. This is something that's way old, and even in some of the reddest of states, they've come off of that some. And I'm surprised that this is just coming up now in 2023. I'm just real surprised about that.
So here's my issue. Everything you just said, I ditto. But here's my problem. Two things. Number one, do I think that there needs to be some, and we've talked about this before. Do I think that there needs to be some sort of benchmark for us to see if our kids are on track and learning what they need to be learning? Yes, absolutely. But here's my problem. Just like that article said towards the end, once again, these types of laws affect our most disenfranchised students. And there obviously there are a variety of reasons why. But the biggest reason why is resources. Let's be clear. Not all kids get what they need to get in the 8 hours that they're in school. But if it is being reinforced at home, if they got certain skills before they even came into school, some kids are already reading when they get to school, or reading sight words, or understanding certain things. Other kids aren't getting that. And so you get to third grade, and now you're testing every third grader in the entire state with the same test. My other problem is the timing of this. I told you guys 3 years ago, our kids are not going to get what they need through this pandemic. So now the kids are back in school. Some of them, the first regular full school year was last year. And you want to give them a test to see if they're on grade level? No, they're not. They weren't even in school for a year and a half. Because let's be clear, we've already had that conversation that remote learning for most of our students was not effective. They were in front of a computer, they were completing assignments, but it wasn't effective. And in most school districts, and I can attest to this on my own in my own experience, but in most school districts, kids were not failing. They could not fail. Teachers could not fail them. So they weren't getting what they needed. And so now you're going to hold all these kids accountable to a law that they were in kindergarten when, like 3 years ago, they were in kindergarten. So I don't know. Well, first grade, I should say. So I'm with you though, El Teddy. It's interesting that they're just starting, because most states have been there, done that, and aren't even doing enforcing it anymore. So
Right.
it is
Even some of the
interesting that
red
Michigan,
states aren't doing it
yeah,
anymore.
it is
So,
interesting that Michigan is just starting, because again, a lot of states been there, done that, got the postcard, and they've moved on. So that's interesting to me.
and that's why I say I think this came during that blue wave. I mean, that red wave that came.
Well, they said it was passed in 2016, but I guess they gave everybody like a 3 year window, and then we had the pandemic, and so now we're here. So, well, we'll
And
keep an eye
your
on it.
girl, ain't your girl from that state, Miss DeVos? Just saying, your girl.
This is why El Teddy be getting cussed out. Y'all be wondering why. Moving on. Let's go on over to Texas. We'll end in Florida, because why not? Dropping the link in the chat. This
Going
is
over to Governor
Texas.
Hot Wheels.
Governor Hot Wheels, child. Governor Hot Wheels.
I'll be over
Hi
there
to
visiting
everybody in
him.
the chat. We have 22 people in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you haven't hit that like button, please do. Appreciate you much. And let's get into our next article. This is coming from the Dallas Morning News. Looking for the date. Oh, here it is. January 31st. It was updated. It was actually updated today at 4:23. Don't tell you. Listen. Don't say we don't give y'all up to date information. Child, it was updated at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and that's Central Standard Time. So that was really 5 o'clock, child. Okay. Governor Abbott heats up school year voucher debate, calling for ESAs for every child in Texas. Oh. Governor Greg Abbott said every child in the state of Texas needs access to a voucher-like program that gives parents public dollars to spend on private school tuition or other educational expenses. Speaking at Annapolis Christian Academy in Corpus Christi, Texas on Tuesday night, Abbott said education savings accounts are what Texas needs to give families options. His remarks came as lawmakers push voucher-like bills this legislative session. When a school does fall short of excellence, that when it strays too far from the fundamentals or simply cannot meet the unique needs of a particular child, parents should not be helpless. They should be able to choose the education option that is best for their child. The state piloted a form of such savings accounts through micro grants made available to select students with disabilities in 2020 during the height of the panorama. It's been so successful, Abbott said in the program. The state awarded $1,500 grants to more than 65,000 students, according to the Texas Education Agency. But that program shouldn't be limited. Efforts to expand the small, limited voucher-like program for students with disabilities or students who attend poor-performing schools are already underway in states across the country. With Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also calling for universal school vouchers this month. The governor cited ongoing parent concerns over the lasting impacts of schools' COVID-19 policies, students underperforming in some public schools, and what content, especially around race and sexuality, is being taught in the classroom during his appearance Tuesday night. No one knows what is better for a child's education than their parents. Parents deserve the freedom to choose the education that is best for their child, he said. Parents must be restored to being the primary decision makers in their education. How the state could funnel public dollars to parents to use for their students' education varies. Traditional vouchers often send the funds through the private school or educational institution where the student enrolls. Education saving accounts give the money directly to families, sometimes in the form of a preloaded debit card. Tax credit scholarships are another choice option, which gives tax breaks to individuals who donate to nonprofits that provide private school scholarships. Dax Gonzalez, the division director of governmental relations for the Texas Association for School Boards, isn't sure that ESA would give families the type of transparency many are seeking. At a time when parents want more transparency around their child's education, ESA vouchers would send public dollars to fund private entities with absolutely no accountability to taxpayers or requirements to give parents access to curriculum, instructional materials, and library cards. Gonzalez and other public education advocates question Abbott's comparison of the limited grant program for students with disabilities to a broader ESA program. The reason the state's current micro grant program for students requiring special education services has been working well is because of the built-in accountability. The TA and education service centers identify and inform parents of approved services, and providers and services are selected to complement the student's individual education plan that outlines a child's specific needs. All right, it's kind of a, let me see.
That's probably the gist of it.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. They get into like the legislation piece where I will read a little bit of this. Several Texas lawmakers have already filed bills creating varying voucher-like programs this session. So that just brings it back around to the beginning of the article saying that this is something that the legislation is trying to push through. Um, Public school advocates worry drops in enrollment will lead to funding cuts for already underfunded public schools and funnel away other resources. They point to a variety of options that Texas public schools already offer. Most school funding is issued on a per pupil basis, so every student with a so called education savings account would negatively affect a district's revenue for operations, facilities, etc., as those costs do not decline in proportion to the decrease in enrollment. Opponents of vouchers also argue private schools aren't held to the same standards as public schools, aren't required to serve all students, especially those with special needs who often cost more to educate, and that public money shouldn't be used to send children to religious schools. Huh. Let me just make sure. I think that's pretty much the gist of it. Pretty much the gist of it. What you got, El Teddy?
It's so disingenuous. The whole uh, ESAs, voucher systems, or whatever you want to call it. It's so disingenuous because these people get on their soapboxes, they rant and rave about parents should have the final say and final authority in a child's education, but you want to give parents money to go and use that money, public money, to go to a private school where a private school could give two shits, excuse my language, about how a parent feels or what the parent thinks need to be taught. A private school says, hey, boo, this is what we teaching. We don't care how you feel about it. And if you don't like it, you and your child could go somewhere else. You don't have any say so at a private school about that. But these very same governors are ranting and raving. Oh, parents need to be able to say what their child wants to see. When you're talking out of both sides of your neck, it doesn't make sense. The other part about it is we really know what this is about. This is about them lining the pockets of special interest organizations and their friends, and sometimes even themselves. Because we know many of these private schools, private education systems, and so forth belong to multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires that are friends that have lobbyists and have lined the pockets of governors to do their bidding. And the more that they can get these public funds funneled into these private entities, the better they are. Because let's be clear, really be you probably know some of the statistics better than I do. There was a time when enrollment at private schools was dwindling. And now, if a private school can say, I'm going to get public funds to go into this to keep our doors open and allow us to do the indoctrinate, y'all know what word I'm trying to say, and to indoctrinate these kids the way we want to. We did a whole article about that one time, remember? About the 150 schools, I think it was in Kentucky or Tennessee or one of those two where they had the 150 private schools that was getting public funds to for indoctrination of kids. This isn't parents having the right to decide what their kids learn. This is lining the pockets of organizations and private schools that these governors sometimes owe a favor to. These governors sometimes have a controlling interest in because they get kickbacks and all of that stuff. That's really what this is. And this is also government trying to be lazy and say, well, you know what? We don't really know how to fix schools. We're not trying to fix public schools either. So let's just be lazy and take the money out of public schools and tell them, screw it, just send your kids to private school. And that way we don't have to be responsible for what goes on and how to fix public schools.
So here's the thing. Let me, everything you said is valid. But let me break this down on a financial level for you guys that may not understand. When they say the per pupil formula, most school systems in our country work on a per pupil formula. Each student has a dollar sign attached to them. Special ed students, it's a little more because they have special needs that may require more resources more staffing, and things of that
Title
nature.
One students as well.
Right. Yeah. Title one as well. So if a school is failing based on whatever the state standard is for failing, whatever data they use, however they make that decision, and a voucher program is introduced to that district, and parents at that quote unquote failing school are told, hey, you can apply to get a voucher and your kid can go to, that pretty white private school across town that you think is better. So they get the voucher. Let's say that school had.
What are you eating over there? Because you making
I'm
me
sorry, I'm
hungry.
done. That was the last bite. I'm sorry.
Girl,
Shut up.
girl.
Shut up. That was the last bite. But let's say that school had 500 students. I'm just throwing out a number for the purposes. Let's say that school had 500 students, and each student was worth $1,000. That is the budget that that school would get every year based on that projected enrollment of 500 students, right? So now that $50,000 that a school would have had, I hope I did my math right, that a school would have had, you now have
That would be
introduced vouchers.
$500,000, not 50.
Oh Lord, I'd have missed two zeros. $500,000. So now as the principal, now what happens is I based my budget on $500,000. I lost 200 kids to vouchers. So the kids that are still left at that school now have to function with less of a budget. We lose staff, we lose resources, we lose supplemental resources. I mean, because now we just got to make sure that we can pay the light bill, take care of paper, and we don't know if we're gonna have enough paper for the copy machine for teachers.
That's the last thing
All of
they
those
pay
different. Well, we know that, child. Resources for teachers is the last thing they buy. But the reality of the situation is, because I went through this in DC. I went through this. They introduced a voucher program, and between the voucher program and the explosion of charter schools, it depleted the public schools. And what ended up happening was now you left the kids who didn't go to a charter school, the kids who didn't get a voucher. Now they're left at a school that has to function on half of the budget that it thought it was going to have with the same need level. Because
And the other part really be that oftentimes doesn't get talked about. Staffing has to lower because you have to attribute X amount of
I
students
just said that. I said
to.
we lose teachers.
I missed that part. I didn't hear the staffing part.
It's okay.
You was probably
But you're
eating
right.
during the time.
Shut up. But it's all right. We lose teachers. So, again, the big business part of this can't be overlooked, because I'm sure if we follow the money, because you always follow the money, I'm sure if we follow the money and we look into these micro grants, because as I was reading the article, that was what I was thinking. Who is funding these grants? Where is it really coming from? If we follow the money all the way back to the beginning and look underneath all of the shell corporations and this and that and the other, I bet you we'll get the bigger picture, which I'm sure it always comes down to. And
They either own part of those private schools or have controlling interest or are getting kickback.
And when it doesn't include private funds, then it's public funds. So now you're paying double, because your taxes are not only paying for the local school that's in your district that is supposed to pay. Now your tax money is paying for vouchers for kids to go to a whole nother school outside of the district. So
I mean, when you talk, and we said we were going to one day do a show on educational funding, but when you start to say, like really B says, follow the money, it actually means everything. I'll give you a perfect example. In Florida, when they switched over the testing companies, when Jeb Bush was president, they chose Pearson because the guy who was CEO of Pearson was the first cousin of Jeb Bush, who was the sitting governor of Florida. And they had all of these, we're going to go and vet it out and pilot it out. when in the whole all the time you was gonna give this to your first cousin who was gonna give you a kickback to fund your next campaign.
Child, that's the meeting I just came out of. We just had a whole presentation from Pearson. Anyway,
Man,
moving right
get
along.
me started on Pearson. Please don't get me started on those
Mm-mm,
people.
mm-mm. Any, oh Lord, any
You
final
know how you
words?
get about Michelle Reed?
I'm not, I'm not
You know how you
discussing
get
her.
about her? That's how I get about Pearson.
Oh, okay. I thought you said I was about to say I'm not talking about her.
Yeah, just how you be feeling when we talk about that woman. That's how I feel about Pearson.
Child,
Ooh, girl.
cause that hoe. I mean, ooh, moving right along. Moving right along. DeSantis. We got two for DeSantis. You want to? Well, let's go ahead and start with with the diversity, and then we'll follow. Well, the last one will be the follow up to what we talked about last week. Then,
Okay.
putting the link in the chat. So we actually have two stories from Florida today.
Because
Yay!
to me, and while really be putting that in the chat, Governor Death Sentence has an all-out assault at this point on public education. Let's just be clear. Every
But my
time you've
question is
seen
this,
him,
El Teddy. Go. I mean, go ahead, and then I have a question for you.
every time you've seen him in recent history in 2023, he's blathering about with regard to public education. Go ahead.
My question to you is this: so, what is the end goal? I mean, you want to destroy public education for your state for what? Like, what is the end goal?
His end goal is to blow it all up and then run away to the White House and say, "Y'all fix it."
Mm,
He's
okay.
going to do it. He's ready to go scorched earth and burn everything down as long as it appeases people who he thinks will be in the electorate that will vote for him. He doesn't care what damage he does. As long as it's good for him in terms of votes, he will do it and leave and let the chips fall where they may and leave it, with embers. Leave it in embers.
Okay. Well, let's get into this, child. Let's get into it. This is coming from Common Dreams website. It is dated January the 31st. DeSantis targets diversity programs, professors in unhinged attack on higher education. The union representing Florida's professors said it would stand in lockstep opposition to any and all so called reforms that will actually destroy our state's world class degree programs and their ability to serve our students. Taking aim yet again at higher education, Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis um, on Tuesday proposed sweeping changes to the state's university system, including banning state funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and critical race theory education, as well as forcing tenured professors to undergo reviews at any time. Speaking during a press conference at the State College of Florida in Bradenton, DeSantis said that he is asking the state legislature to cut all funding for programs that he believes are ideological. So again, we're back. Nope, let me just finish reading the article. Referring to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which aim to promote fair treatment and full participation, and critical race theory, a graduate level framework dealing with systematic racism, DeSantis said, we are also going to eliminate all DEI and CRT bureaucracies in the state of Florida. No funding, and that will wither on the vine. Apparently, not satisfied with a state law requiring tenured professors at state colleges and universities to undergo reviews every 5 years, DeSantis also called for legislation that would subject such educators to reviews at any time at risk of their jobs. Yes, we have the 5 year review of all tenured faculty, which is good, and the board of trustees has to determine whether they stay or go. But you may need to do a review more aggressively than just five, he said. I've talked with folks around the country who've been involved in higher ed reform, and the most significant deadweight cost at universities is typically unproductive, tenured faculty, the government added. And so, why would we want to saddle U.S. taxpayers with that cost if we don't have to do that? United Faculty of Florida, the union representing college and university educators in the state, said it would fight DeSantis's proposals. The United Faculty of Florida stand in lockstep opposition to any and all so-called reforms that will actually destroy our state's world-class degree programs and their ability to serve our students. UFF President Andrew Gothard said in a statement, "We will not allow Florida's future to be sacrificed for cheap political points." Writing for the Chronicle of Higher Education, France Deep and Emma Pettit contended that it has been a dizzying month for higher ed in the Sunshine State. What I find most troubling is that DeSantis is putting out a blueprint for other governors and state legislators. Christian Wren, a professor at Michigan State University who researches LGBTQ college courses, told the Chronicle of Higher Education he's doing these things in ways that anybody else can pick this up and do it. Yeah, he's giving y'all the blueprint. Exactly. DeSantis, a potential 2024 presidential candidate, has also come under fire for other policies and actions, including rejecting a college preparatory African American Studies course, banning unapproved books from K through 12 libraries, and a Stop Woke Act, a CRT ban that applies to schools from the primary through university levels and is meant to combat what the governor called wokeness as a form of cultural Marxism. Mia Brett, legal historian at the editorial board last week, compared Republicans' attacks on education across the country to similar moves by the leaders of Nazi Germany during the early months of their regime. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this is directly out of the Nazi laws passed in 1933. Though if this Republican effort is successful, you might not be able to learn things like that anymore, she wrote, adding that the legislation banning courses on CRT and racial gender identity are a chilling erosion of academic freedom and a huge step forward toward fascist economic control in the service of right-wing narratives. Let me say this real quick, El Teddy, before I'm gonna drop it. I'm gonna throw it to you. That last statement that she made is 120% accurate. If you study, a lot of people think that the Holocaust started at just the death camps. It did not. It started 10 years earlier than the death camps. It started when Hitler not just took control, but he stole control. It started with the series of laws that seemed, I'm not going to say they didn't seem major at the time, but they were little things. And it continued to build and it continued to build and it continued to build. And when I was reading just now, El Teddy, all of the different laws that he has passed over the last year, and you look at that, is exactly what's happening. But go ahead, I'm gonna stop now. But yeah.
Well, I've been screaming for the longest that if we recall, Hitler said he got his blueprint from us. He was very, matter of fact about that. And we're just going back to the good old days of how it was. But let's be clear here. The first one I want to attack is the fact that we already have a system in place where every 5 years there is review of all tenured faculty. And so now what he's introducing is, well, we may need to do that every time sooner than that, because what he's looking is for cover to remove any faculty from a public university or college or university that says anything or instructs or anything that he deems isn't worthy of instruction. And the last time, which goes against everything that involves not just education in its most basic form, but certainly higher education, because higher education was always seen as a place where people had the freedom of education. People could go and learn about things that you may not normally learn about when you were in public school, that you could go and you could take a course that you never dreamed that you could take before. It wasn't subject to how someone felt or whether or not somebody felt it needed to be taught, or whether somebody felt that that thing had educational value. It was based on what that person was paying to go to school for. So, are there going to be things at a college and institution of higher learning or at a university that may be contrary to what I believe, contrary to what I think should be there, contrary to things that I may have value to? Absolutely. Am I going to fight to have those things put out? No, I am not. I'm not. Because if I do that, and if I allow them to do that to one, that's going to come for something that I take value in. So that's my first thing. So now you've made it where now nobody wants to come and work at a university or a college in Florida. Who the hell are you going to get to come and work here now? Where a tenured professor is told, well, you can have your tenure snatched at any given moment. Like, who's going to literally come and sign up for that? Nobody. That's one. The second thing is what Governor DeSantis is doing. He actually took the blueprint from Governor Hot Wheels, because I talked about this on my channel. Remember when Cheeto Man was still in there, Governor Hot Wheels took a blueprint from Cheeto Man and took out all DEI and diversity in any state institution, any state university, anything that was state funded or came under the subjection of the state of Texas. They outlawed by law teaching diversity, teaching DEI, or teaching any type of training that taught you how to be sensitive to different races, creeds, cultures, and gender, or whatnot, whatever. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That was done away with. And so DeSantis is following that blueprint, and now he's instituting this in Florida, which basically says you don't need to be taught how to talk correctly to someone that's different from you. It's okay now to have racial epithets and slurs all in the workplace. It's okay now at the university level for somebody to be belittled simply because they may be handicapped, simply because of the color of their skin, simply because of their gender, just simply because of their orientation, or simply because of anything that makes them different from you. It is open season now for you to do whatever and say whatever, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to do about it. Why would someone want to do that?
So y'all was just determined to make me talk about that woman today. So what he's proposing and the attack that they're using is the same attack that was used when Michelle Reed came to DC. She sold I'm telling you, listen, I said y'all gonna make me talk about that woman. There was a documentary out called what was it called? Looking for Superman or something, Superman child or
It's
something.
such a Superman, I think it was.
Yeah. And there was a thing in there they called it the dancing of the limits, where they talked about how hard it is to get rid of a teacher once a teacher has gotten
Mm-hmm.
on the K through 12 level. It's not called tenured. It's called, well, different states use different language, but they're vested or whatever the word you want to use. And she sold it that it's just so hard for us to get rid of teachers that aren't working and they're lazy and they don't want to do this and they don't want to do that. And I need a way to be able to fire teachers at will. And she worked so hard to be able to circumvent the union. And she actually was successful here in DC in finding a way to circumvent the union, which I'll explain that another day. But she was able to really, for all intents and purposes, circumvent the union. And I heard that article, and that's what I heard. When you say, well, yeah, we do have a way that we review professors every 5 years, but that's just not enough. And he used the word aggressively, right? So now, again, what you're looking for is you're looking to really get rid of tenure, honestly, so that
Mm-hmm.
really professors are on an at-will basis. And again, an argument can be made in both directions. Waiting for Superman, thank you. But an argument can be made in both directions, but we know what the intent is. Because, like he said, anything that he deems to be offensive. Once again, we're back to the same thing with those books. It's your decision on what you deem to be offensive. See, that's where we're in trouble. That's where we're in trouble.
Oh yeah, we're absolutely in trouble. We are already careening down the slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to stop yourself if you're already careening down the slippery slope, unfortunately, is you to run into something really hard. And guess what? There's possible death involved. There's possible, broken limbs and all types of horrible things that happen when you're careening down the slippery slope, and that immovable force has to stop you. Never ends well.
It's not. And Florida, and we always joke about Florida, 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 but just like in that article, Florida is really just laying down the blueprint. Like it will be coming to a state near you soon. Florida is just laying out the blueprint. Oh Lord. Okay. Well, last but not least, we have a follow up to the story we covered last week as it relates to AP. Let's go ahead and get into it. Is this the one that's gonna? Oh, this one might not open. Hold on. You know how the New York Times does. Let me see if it'll let
Mhm.
me open it up. Nope. Okay. Let me go to the CNN one because I
That's
sent
why,
both of them.
you
Yeah,
have
I
a
know.
ram in the bush.
I didn't even mean to. Yeah, right. And I really meant to click the CNN one off the break because I didn't even want to fool with it, but I clicked on that one by accident. So, all right. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. It keeps going back. Hold on. It keeps going to the same one. Hold on. I sent the CNN one. Hold on. Oh, here it is. I'm gonna say I know I sent the CNN one because I remember specifically that I did it. Okay. Here's the link.
Yes, Florida gets 2 points today.
Listen, I'm gonna give y'all an update in a minute. I'm gonna give y'all an update in a minute.
No, Tracy says, if we're tracking, does Florida get 2 points today?
Oh yeah, Florida gets 2 points a day. We're on episode 4 for this year, and we already have 4 articles from Florida. So we're averaging one per episode, just so far. All right, you
Imagine.
guys. So this is coming from CNN. It is dated February the 1st, and it was updated at 12:41 Eastern Standard Time. So the College Board released Wednesday the official framework of a new advanced placement course on African American studies that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis earlier denounced for imposing a political agenda. In recent months, the multidisciplinary course has been praised by academics and historians, all while becoming a target for lawmakers aiming to restrict how topics like racism and history are being taught in public schools. DeSantis had objected to some of the topics and authors that were initially part of the course. These topics, Black queer studies and Black feminism, are not in the official course released Wednesday, but students can take them on as a part of a required research project. So, okay. The 221-page framework details the required course content and includes an overview of what high school students will encounter on the course's exam for college credit and placement. The College Board, the nonprofit, child, y'all better stop calling yourself a nonprofit. But anyway, organization that oversees AP coursework has said the first African American Studies exam will be administered in the spring of 2025. College Board CEO David Coleman described the course as an unflinching encounter with the facts and evidence of African American history and culture. No one is excluded from this course. The Black artists, the inventors whose achievements have come to light, the Black women and men, including gay Americans who played pivotal roles in the civil rights movement, and people of faith from all backgrounds who contributed to the anti slavery and civil rights causes. Everyone is seen, Coleman said in a statement. Last month, Florida sent a letter to the College Board rejecting the proposed course. The state's education department earlier told CNN if it had concerns, that it had concerns about 6 topics of study, including the movement for Black Lives Matter, Black feminism, and reparations. Ron DeSantis told reporters last week the decision was made because it included the study of queer theory and political movements that advocated for abolishing prisons. That's a political agenda, DeSantis said at a news conference in Jacksonville. That's the wrong side of the line for Florida standards. We believe in teaching kids facts and how to think, but we don't believe that they should have an agenda imposed upon them. Sorry, Papa. Imposed upon them when you try to use Black history to sidehorn and queer theory. You are clearly trying to use that for political purposes. But the newly released framework does not appear to include the controversial content. What is in the course? Um, Designed to be taught over 28 weeks, the course covers 79 topics that range from African kingdoms to how Jim Crow laws impacted African Americans after Reconstruction, as well as the achievements of Black Americans in science, music, and art. The topics are divided into four major units: origins of the African diaspora, freedom, enslavement, and resistance, the practice of freedom, and movements and debates. The units include other topics such as the response of African American writers to activists to racism and anti Black violence, the founding of historical Black colleges and universities, Black Caribbean migration to the United States, segregation in the 20th century, redefining, and the civil rights movement. More than 300 professors of African American studies, including faculty from dozens of HBCUs, were consulted during the development of the coursework, which was completed in December, the organization said. The course focuses on the topics where professors shared a strong consensus on the essential events, experiences, and individuals crucial to the study of African American history and culture, the College Board said in a news release Wednesday. What's not, I'm going to just go down to what's not in the course. Florida, under DeSantis, banned the teaching of critical race theory and passed new legislation last year barring instruction that suggests anyone is privileged or oppressed based on their race or color. The state's education department previously told CNN that it had concerns about some topics of study included in an 81-page document that appears to be a preview of the course framework. The document, dated February of 2022, was shared with CNN last month by DeSantis spokesperson Brian Griffin. The topics that raised the concerns of the DeSantis administration were intersectionality and activism, Black queer studies, movement for Black lives, Black feminist literary thought, reparations, and Black study and Black struggle in the 21st century. Many of the objections were tied to the inclusion of texts from modern Black thought leaders and history teachers whose writings the DeSantis administration believes violate state laws. Black Lives Matter, the movement of Black lives, or the cause for reparations were not included in the official course framework released on Wednesday. None of the authors listed as concerning by Florida education officials are included in the required readings of the final framework. The reparation debate, gay life and expression in in Black communities, and Black Lives Matter are only included in a list of examples of the topics that students can pick for research projects. These topics are not a required part of the course framework that is formally adopted by states and that defines the exam. This list is a partial one of the illustrative purposes that can be redefined by states and districts, the College Board said on the framework. The College Board said no states or districts saw the official framework prior to its release on Wednesday, much less
Convenient.
provided. Huh?
No, I said that's real convenient for them to say that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can keep on because yeah, I'm spiking. Go ahead.
Okay. Much less provided feedback on it. The course has been shaped only by the input of experts and longstanding AP principles and practices, the organization said in a statement. Okay, go ahead. I'm done.
No, I said convenient when they said, "Oh, no states saw these." You know what we were going to put out before we put it out. So what we basically have them doing is you're kowtowing, you're coalescing to Ron DeSantis and everything that he said.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay, you lost me. You lost me somewhere.
Because no, what I mean is by them leaving out, what happened was they're leaving out all of the things that DeSantis said I have a problem with. Everything that DeSantis said I don't want this in there, they took out. And
But I don't,
so,
I don't agree with that. I disagree.
well, you can. That's fine. That's
No,
okay.
no, no. What I'm saying is, well, let me say this. I don't see it like that. I believe that Ron DeSantis, because whenever stuff like this happens, you get notes, right? So I do not believe that Ron DeSantis or anybody in his administration saw, much less
Oh no, I'm
read,
not
an
saying they
800
saw it.
page document.
No,
I
no, no.
think that
I'm
they
not
got
saying that they saw it.
highlights and they stepped and they held onto the highlights only to be like, duh, we never said that was part of the curriculum. That is a part of, you know what I'm saying?
I see it as I don't believe Ron DeSantis saw it either. I'm not saying Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida saw it. What I'm saying is it was only after Ron DeSantis said what he said. Now they say, yeah, let's go ahead and take this out because we need to coalesce to his demand.
See, that's what I'm saying. I don't believe that that's what
And,
happened. But
and
go
I
ahead.
add that too, and I meant to send you this as well. I'll probably for next week. There's another article that I saw earlier today where even AP Lit is now has a whole segment of books that they said these are no longer on the AP Lit list of books that you need to read. You can imagine what those books fall under. All of the materials fall under what Black Studies and the CRT books that people had a problem with. And so what this is like you said earlier, College Board is about money. They're about business.
Yeah.
Florida being the what third largest state, third or fourth largest state in the country, they are all about keeping the almighty dollar there in Florida. And if Governor DeSantis says, I don't want it in there or it's not coming in my state, guess what College Board said? Yeah, we were gonna have that in there, but nah, we're gonna take that out. We're just gonna make that
Mm.
optional because what we're not gonna have is the College Board not being in Florida. That's way too much money for us to give up on. Ron DeSantis knows that, and so does the College Board. So to me, this acquiescing to this man and his demands means that he's going to do more. He's going to push further. This just gives him
So
more.
you feel like the College Board went back and changed and took stuff out based on what Ron DeSantis said?
Oh, absolutely. It's very
Okay.
easy for them to say, instead of making this required, this is now optional. It's very easy. Or them saying, we're just
Mm.
going to make this an optional project that you can do on the side.
Okay.
And to me, we're all when and if you have one person that can push back and deem something of educational value and something not of educational value, and they have that because even if you tell me they didn't, and but magically all of the things that he wanted now are out. So to me, you are diminishing the educational value of those things yourself by saying, yeah, these aren't required. You don't really need to know about these things. That could just be optional.
Okay.
Because to me, leaving out Black Lives Matter is not optional. Leaving out Black feminism is not optional.
They didn't
Leaving,
say See, that's what I'm saying. They didn't say black feminism wasn't in there. They said that Black Lives Matter wasn't in there and the queer was not in there. Black feminism they
no,
never
I
said
heard
was
when I read it, I read the
hold on, let me
reparations
go
was
back
not
to the
in there.
article then. Let me make sure I'm right then, because let me go back to
Oh,
the article.
I thought it was reparations. When it on the
Mm-mm.
list of
Let me go
not
back.
included.
Let me go back. I'm gonna go back because I don't want to be. I want to get it right. All right, not in the course. The topics that raise the concerns of the DeSantis were intersectionality and activism, Black queer studies, movements for Black lives, Black feminist literary thought, reparations, and Black study and the Black struggle. Many
Yeah,
of the
so Black
objections. Wait,
feminists are
wait a
there.
minute. Wait, let me finish. Let me finish. They're saying those are the things that he had a problem with. But what
Hmm.
they said in the next paragraph, Black Lives Matter, the movement of Black lives, the case for reparations were not included in the official course. That's it. Everything else that's
But
in there
no,
is.
go back if you go back to the previous articles when they I'm not previous article, previous paragraphs when you met those are things that were omitted. The other topics they made optional where they could be a separate study. If you go and look
No,
at the
listen to
other,
what I'm El Teddy, listen to what I'm saying to you. I'm reading the section that says what's not included. What's
but what
not
I'm telling you is
included?
go higher. What I'm saying is really be I'm saying with the
Okay, I'm scrolling back
feminism,
up. I'm going higher. I'm going back up. I'm going back
with
up.
the feminism and things like that, they
Feminism was never, they never said, well, let me go back up. We got the article right here because that's
yeah,
not
we
what I
did.
remember. So let me go back. Let me go back.
We
Let me
did
go
the
back.
article.
That's what I
Uh,
said. I got the article right here. So let me go back. No one is excluded from the course. Black women, men, including gay men, blah, 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 blah. Last month, Florida legislators, the political agenda, news like history, what's in the course, what's not in the course. Okay, I went all the way back to the top. So
I got to pull it up. I give me a second. But go ahead. I'm gonna let you
it
go. Go
says
ahead.
the scientists objected to some of the topics and authors that were initially part of the course. Those topics, Black studies and Black feminism, are not. Oh, I see what you're saying. Are not in the official course released Wednesday, but still okay. So all right. My apologies. I see. I knew Black queer was taken out, but I didn't think that Black feminism was.
Yeah,
My
that's what I'm
apologies.
saying.
My apologies. My
Yeah,
apologies. Because
they made
down
it
later on
where
in the article, it well. That's
the
my
ones
apology.
that you mentioned later, they completely removed them completely. The ones that said not included, those are just completely taken out. The other ones that he had a concern,
Mhm.
now they're deeming, oh, well, now these are just optional now. And
I don't
so,
know how. Well, I know why they took Black feminism out. I know why he took Black feminism out. Um,
and why is that?
my opinion. Let me say that my opinion, because a lot of your more popular Black feminists also speak, either identify as queer or speak to sexual freedom, as well as the Black struggle. So your Nikki Giovanni's, your Angela Davis's, your Alice Walker's. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the,
Hmm.
so they're also closely connected to Black, to freedom of sexuality. They adhere with they identify as queer. A lot of them. So in my opinion, I don't have his. I certainly don't think I understand how he thinks, but in my opinion, but I mean, you could say the same about white feminism. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
could say the
you
same thing about a lot
absolutely
of the
can.
white feminist writers. So
And so that's why I'm saying that's you're coalescing to this man and his demands. You are basically allowing, and we just talked about this in the previous article. One person should not be allowed to decide what is and is not of educational value for an entire course framework, especially when, sir, last time I checked, you have no clue of the black. Well, I don't want to limit it to that. Let me strike that from the record. But I'll let you go really because I feel myself speaking out, but that upset
I
me.
don't really, I honestly don't really have nothing for it if you want to know the truth of the matter, because I feel like, so even if I go along your thought process, it was all in vain, because it doesn't matter what you take out, it doesn't matter what you adjust or change to try to pacify him. He's not going to approve the class because he doesn't want it. Period. It doesn't matter what they take out. It doesn't matter what adjustments they make. They don't. He's not going to approve. So you know what I mean. So I don't have nothing,
I got
child.
no that I can see what you're saying right there. I can absolutely see what you're. I saw a video earlier today of them on Fox News. Did you see that video on Fox News where the guy was talking about the course and he said, "Oh, it's such a beautiful course until you get to 1960, and then at that point, it's just indoctrination." And he just went on this rant and rave. So basically, what you're saying is, we already know what that is. We already know what that is. You're just gonna be as racist as you want to be, and be unapologetic about it. Just be completely unapologetic about it. I'm
Yeah,
just saying.
yeah.
I'm just saying. It's sickening to me. But here's the other thing. Like he's like you said, he's given the blueprint. And like I said, I'm gonna send you that article. There's an article about, because one of my friends from one of my former schools sent it to me. The college board is saying AP Lit is is changing its list and is getting smaller on its list of approved courses. Beloved is taken out. A whole bunch of those black books by black authors are taken out.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, we 10 minutes over,
We
so
are.
I get it. Yes, you've done a good job of depressing me. So
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. God.
I need a drink. Final words, sir. Any final words?
We'll continue to beat the drum. We'll continue to rant and rave. But somebody's got to say it. Somebody has to um, put this stuff out there so we know what's happening. Because here's the thing: all of that news that you heard when it came out that he said he didn't want the course, you don't hear anybody. Well, not anybody, but there's not that same fevered pitch in mainstream media about the fact that college board acquiesced to what he wanted. So I don't know what this means. I was upset today that your president didn't even go to that man's funeral. I was still upset about that, but that's a whole nother story. I'm not gonna get into that. Go ahead, really, be before I spike out. Go.
Thank y'all for being here.
Wait, that's all you got.
I just can't.
That's all you got.
I'm going live immediately after this to talk about stupid stuff like housewives because I just need to do that for my soul. I just need to do that for my soul right now. I do. Okay. As much as I do not, as much as I'm not a Beyonce fan right now, I just need some
You
you
need
won't break
Beyonce.
my soul,
You
right?
need
I just
you
need
need
some
some
you
Beyonce. You
won't
gonna
break
break
my
my. Come on,
soul.
Beyonce. You gonna break my soul. Ah,
Right.
you gonna break my
I just need some you won't break my
soul.
soul right now.
You break my
Oh
soul.
my gosh.
You break my soul.
We can't have nothing. Damn.
You didn't break
We
my
can't
soul.
have
You
nothing.
see, I'm over here. This is about as close as y'all gonna get to a Beyonce concert from me, okay? Me dancing to "You Gonna Break
I'm
My
surprised you
Soul."
even know the words to the
You gonna break
song.
my soul. I just know those words. You gonna break my soul. I
See,
don't know
that's
no
all
other
I
words.
know too.
That's all I know. I don't know no other words. You gonna break my soul. Just saying. Oh, that's actually, and that's the wrong word. Is you won't break my soul, right?
Mm,
Uh,
mm, mm. All right, I'm out.
we're
Thank y'all
out.
for being here. I appreciate you guys. If you have not hit the like button, please hit the like button on your way out the door. Join me in about 10 minutes on my channel because we're going to just talk about housewives and stupid stuff. That's what I
Housewife.
need right now. I'll talk to
Housewife.
y'all later. Oh, God.
Hell, I'm about to go